which I do when I start a new role. In the beginning, for the first months, maybe you got to put in.
If you had to choose one thing that helped you accelerate really, really quickly in that 1 year, what would you choose?
Like, oh my God, they're giving me money and I'm a fraud.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to episode 1 of my podcast. I still haven't given it a name, so yeah, hopefully by the time I'm uploading this, it has a really cool, interesting name that everyone really likes. Yes, I'm very excited to be joined by Adib today. So Adib actually works with me at Fuse, and he's had a very interesting journey as a software engineer, and I think you guys are going to learn a lot from him. So thanks for joining me here today, Adib.
Good to be here.
Let's just get straight right into it. So let's start at the beginning, at the very start. What did you want? What did you want to be when you were a child?
I wanted to be a software engineer, and I'm not even lying.
Really?
Like, yeah. I mean,
Wow.
you go through those phases as a child where you're excited for certain prospects. Like for me, astronaut. Honestly, astronaut. I wanted to be an astronaut, obviously.
We all want to be an astronaut at some point.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, astronaut. And then after that, I realized I enjoyed maths. Now, this was around year 7, 8. But I didn't want to be an accountant, right? Or a math teacher. And that's what it felt like all the maths led to. So I thought, what's a job that's kind of mathsy, but will get me a lot of money in the future? And did a bit of Googling, and it came to software developer. So I was like, yeah, sounds good enough.
So the motivation was money and something that involves maths.
Yeah. The money part was right. The maths part, not so much.
It's true. There's barely how much maths do you actually use as software engineer on a day-to-day basis?
I guess at best basic arithmetic, and that's it.
Or just some ads. Even then, you just make the programming language do the ads for you, right?
Yeah. But like after putting the numbers and the ad sign,
Yeah.
So
you have to know how to do. And when do you write? So how old are you? Year 7, year 8. How old are you around that point?
Probably like 11, 12.
So 11, 12, you decide, okay, I want something involved in maths, and software engineering is going to pay the most money and it involves maths. So when did you actually end up writing your first line of code?
I want to sound like a big nerd, so I'll follow up when I say this. It was honestly around that age where I wanted to pick up C++.
C++. You started with C++.
The thing is, I don't really know how to Google like that. I was like, what's a popular language? C++. Alright, cool. Let me pick that up. And back in the day, the new Boston was him, right? He was the guy making all these big tutorials. So I followed his tutorials, did some coding, and then I decided I'll learn to code in uni. And
So you gave up. I guess that's the problem with starting with C++. It's not a very friendly language to start with.
Yeah, I said, "Fund it, I'll leave it till I need it."
Do you remember what exactly you tried to code in C++?
A calculator.
A calculator. Did you manage to code it successfully?
Yeah. But the thing is, when you follow tutorials, it's almost blind. Like, yeah, I kind of got what's going on, but really, I was being handheld by the new Boston to build this. So yeah, I built it, but really, did I? It's up for debate.
Do you feel like that added to your drive to wanting to become a software engineer, or did it take away from your drive?
I guess the drive C++ calculator. So one thing is, I guess I always felt like at the time, it was difficult, but I knew I could learn it. And I was in no rush. Like I was 11, 12. And also when I chose a career, I made sure to choose a career that was very doable. Like it doesn't require a lot of effort. Go take maths for A-level, do a computer science degree, and then you're there. So I kind of, at that age, I trusted the process. So it didn't really affect my drive in any way. I just kept trusting the process, and eventually just happened.
Okay, moving forward a bit to by 3 years. So what did you actually end up studying at university? Firstly, did you go to university?
Yes, I did.
Hold on. What did you end up studying at university?
Why are we clapping for university? What's wrong with if you don't go?
No, it's all good, all of that. But I'm just glad because your aim was to get into university. So I'm glad you got into university and you actually did it. So what did you end up studying?
Computer science, of course. What else? Because that is the most common one for software development. Like I just Googled, I asked around, it's like, yeah, you want to do computer science if you're doing software development. So
I
that's
noticed
what I
there's a
studied.
lot of themes of you Googling to answer all the questions you have. Would you say that that's something you've always done, as opposed to, is that where you get most of your advice from?
Well, Google,
Yeah.
yes, they are a very, very good search engine.
Yeah.
Now they're getting a bit of competition from ChatGPT, so
Yeah.
that's quite interesting there. But yeah, Google was pretty much the main place I went to, especially in
Yeah.
our school. Like the school I went to, I don't really think you had guidance counselors. Is that what they're called?
I think
I
Adib
hear
had,
that in movies.
so I think that's what they called it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't really like anyone to really talk to. Although to be fair, I did do computing at AS, and I don't remember, but I probably asked him. Like he was a great teacher. To be fair, Dr. Galan, he was actually a fantastic AS tutor or teacher. So he probably also helped me make this decision as well.
Shout out Dr. Galan.
Yeah, shout out Dr. Galan.
I guess going back a bit to computing at AS level, how was that? Did you learn a lot about coding from there, or was it? Yeah.
To be fair, yeah, that is actually the first place. So we learned Java there, and that is actually my proper first introduction to coding, learning Java. It was actually pretty fun. I enjoyed it. Went through it, learned some Java, thanks to Dr. Galan. And at uni, our main language was actually Java.
Yeah.
So it carried on really nicely, and then I started working Java, and Java, up to now is my preferred and main language.
But when you were learning Java in AS level, you're roughly around 17, 16?
Yeah, 16 to 18. Or 16, 17, yeah.
Yeah. What, did you understand it right away? Do you feel like you picked it up faster than everyone around you? Or was it like a struggle at the start?
It felt... So before they introduced it, they introduced things like certain concepts like variables, conditionals, recursion, loops, things like that.
Yeah.
And then they kind of brought in Java, and it wasn't, other than the syntax, picking up the syntax of a new language for the first time since I was 11 trying to do C++, but it wasn't that bad. I thought it was pretty intuitive. It made sense. In terms of picking up faster than everyone except one person, a friend of mine called Edmund, because we did AS computing together. We kind of competed, and I guess us competing helped us learn it faster as well.
Oh, okay.
But when we picked it, we did do pretty well in that.
That's interesting. Is that like a theme you've seen over your career of like competing with people to pick up new skills and yeah?
Yeah, I'd say so. Because even in AS, with physics, I had another friend who I was competing with, and we kind of helped push each other further. Same with maths and our further maths classes. Same to when I start working. Same in my current job at Fuse.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so going back to university, there's computer science, but there's also software engineering. Did you have any confusion about which one to choose, or was it obvious that you're going to... Why is it funny?
I don't know. The funny thing, I mean, it feels like it makes sense. Like, do software engineering to do software.
Right? Because I know in our we also went to the same university, by the way, me and Adib. I know there was a software engineering course, but we never did
What's
it.
that? Oh, they got finesse. They got finesse.
Software engineering in university, and they basically did all the fun parts of coding without all the maths and discrete math. I don't even have to say it anymore. Discrete maths that we had to do.
The internet told me to do computer science, and the internet also said avoid software engineering. That's pretty much how I made my decision.
Remember the reason why it said I avoid software engineering as a degree?
Nah, I didn't question it. I just trusted. I trusted the process. Computer science and software. But it sounds like what you said about software engineers, that they did the fun parts of software engineering, like a lot of coding and not much maths.
Yeah.
Personally, like one of the modules I enjoyed the most was data structures and algorithm. I actually genuinely enjoyed that module.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing I enjoyed it, because when you get to working, that is arguably the most important module you'll ever do for software development. Yeah. And getting a job, and even coding things, and that module is extremely important. For some people, it's actually, because I know a friend who did a master's in computer science, and it wasn't a compulsory module. It was like if you want to do it, you can.
Mm-hmm.
If that's you, do that module. You have to do data structures and algorithms if you want a really high-paying job.
Yeah, makes sense. And I guess university, how did you find it? How was was it hard? Because you already did the Java before, was it just easier for you? Was it a walk in the park?
I guess so. So computer science, when you do a computer science degree, it's not all programming. I guess in the whole degree, in terms of modules specifically for programming, we might have had 3 modules out of a bunch that was specifically programming. After, I'd say maybe your first semester, the rest of your modules, well, after your first semester, you should have enough code. How do I put this? So after your first semester, every other module you do from then on assumes you know how to code. So they don't teach you know how to code. They just give you tasks to do and code. And if I think the year I did of AS computing helped with that. But even if I didn't do it, I think I would have still been all right. So I found the coding part fine. Like, the difficulty isn't actually coding. It's you get given certain tasks and you have to complete those tasks. And the code itself never is an issue.
Yeah.
For example, let's say you might take a computer vision module, then you need to code stuff to process images and things like that, right? But by this point, you should already be, I guess, fluent in a language. Maybe not Java, but a language. And so, yeah, in terms of programming, programming wasn't really the big part of a computer science degree, but it was fine. It was still fine.
And what would you say was your biggest learnings from attending university and studying computer science? If any.
I'd say it's tough because I definitely had way more learnings in work.
Yeah.
But you need a good memory to pass exams.
Yeah.
And I don't want to encourage people to do uni like how I did uni, because mine was a bit of a shams. But
you're great here right now, so maybe like whatever you did worked out really well. So how did you do uni exactly?
How did I do?
Yeah, from it.
So Tunde and I did uni in the following way.
Hey, leave my name out of your mouth.
The thing is, I guess, so for first year I was on it, right? First year, first semester, and even second semester, more or less going to lectures, studying, and all of that. Second and third year, I learned that a lot of the modules, you could actually do last-minute revision and do really well in the exams.
100%.
Or maybe it was just the uni we went to. Maybe it was Southampton.
Yeah.
But it was a kind of situation where you do this last-minute revision, do the exams, and everything you learn is out of your mind. Like, honestly, in terms of things I learned in uni, maybe, yeah, I'd say the data structures and algorithms and our programming modules, or one of the programming modules, maybe programming 1, not 2 or 3, was the only thing that really stuck. Because everything else is kind of, when you get to second and third, you kind of specialize. So you might take a computer vision module, you might take an AI module, but unless you go into that field, I don't remember any of it. I remember some of the AI stuff. But unless you go into that field, it's, it's not, I don't want to say useless, but I haven't found a use for it.
Yeah.
Although saying that, in this day and age, and maybe in 5 to 10 years, I might be an AI engineer. So I'm just
I do remember though, like 2 weeks before our exams, would start memorizing all the past papers. They always just repeated questions that they've asked before. So those questions I remember answering that I didn't understand it. I just remember memorizing the answer. I just memorized that. I just wrote down the answer when I saw the question.
Draw this diagram.
Literally,
close your eyes and start drawing.
Okay. I had no idea what I was drawing, but yeah. Okay, makes sense. Did you do any internship while you were at university?
I wanted to, but no company would accept me, so no.
You applied for companies?
Yeah, I applied for some companies, but it was...
Apply for?
I actually don't even remember. I think there were maybe 1 or 2 which I got like interviews for, and I got kind of up. But this was before I understood the interview process and what it consisted of. How important this whole data structure and algorithm was, how to actually do a coding interview where you have to talk out loud, talk through your thought process, break or convey yourself breaking down a problem. Like, I didn't know about any of that. I just thought, oh, well, I'm doing a degree. That's all it takes, right? Like, they see I have a degree, they might ask me some basic Java questions and I get a job, right? It wasn't that. So I did not get any internships throughout. Well, actually, no, I was a programming tutor for one summer.
Is that an internship? Who are you teaching?
It was just a job. It was only just a job. kids, like little kids.
If you could go back to university and do it all over again, what would you do differently to be able to get those internships?
What would I do differently? I guess if I could keep the same experience or the same knowledge, I'd know how it's better to craft a CV. I'd know what kind of projects to do. Well, it depends, because I'd have to see on a job description basis what are they really looking for, and I guess tailor my CV to that job description. So because honestly my CV was garbage for one, and I was just throwing it out there because I thought it was a numbers game, like throw my CV in 100 places and I'm surely bound to get one. But it didn't really work like that. So for one, cater your CV. And honestly, as much as I hate to say it, you got to do side projects. Like when you work, you build a really good CV, especially depending on what kind of stuff you work on, because you actually do real world projects. But you don't have that in uni, so you actually got to spend time on side projects. So that's how you stand out, or don't. Honestly, I didn't get an internship. I don't know, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point, because I remember my CV, it definitely helped. I remember speaking to the interviewer at Google. They definitely cared about all the side projects. I had been working on side projects for years, so my CV was full of side projects that I worked on. So that was definitely useful. So let's say I was Google and I had an internship opportunity open, and it's general. Google doesn't really tell you what you're going to work on. They just hire interns. So let's say you knew the interview process is going to be 2 data structure and algorithm questions. How would you prepare for it at university right now if you knowing everything you know now?
No, I think you can actually, I feel like you could maybe answer this one better because you actually did the whole interview and you passed it. But I think you do need data structure and algorithms, but not to the level of getting like a full-time job at Google. So I'd bang my lead code. I'd start my lead code, go to that top 150, go through it. I'd learn Python. Even if my main language is Java, I'm learning Python for these lead code. Just less verbose, easier to implement stuff. I'd learn Python. And also Google actually, let me see if I can find it, but Google fully has a page on how to pass the interview. And I'll see if I can find it and send it to you. But I remember it was quite like data structures and algorithm. It's not a secret. Like on their page, they're like, okay, we're going to ask you this. We're going to ask you, learn your hash maps, learn your trees, learn some maths, learn some combinatorics. I think that's what it's called. Like they fully say it, just learn this and you'll be fine. Right. So I'm sure Google has somewhere on the page.
And people are just not doing that, and they're just like trying to make it up in the interview process.
Yeah, but it is hard. Like it is, you do have to put in a lot of practice with these to get leak code style interviews. Yeah.
Send it to me after. I'll add it to the show notes so everyone else can find it. Okay, so after university, so you finished university, you missed most of the lectures, you said, except in the first year. How long did it take for you to land your first job after graduating?
Well, that instant. So I guess I was lucky there. I remember being really nervous because people were starting to land jobs like before they fully actually finish uni. And I'm not talking about graduate. I mean like when the last day where you step off campus and go home and then you come back for graduation. People are learning jobs, and mine was kind of late. Like everyone was getting jobs. I was here stressed, thinking, "Oh my god, I'm gonna be jobless." I remember my heart was beating. Well, but one company actually got back to me. I did the interview process. It was a junior role. And funnily enough, I think. Oh, go on.
Sorry to interrupt you. I want to know what the interview process was like. Like how did you prepare for it? What was the interview?
Let me see if I can remember. So a call, right? So call, it was just a standard call with a recruiter, just to get vibes from their side, because since I was in the company and I got to see what the interview was, they say we do this call just to check vibes of the person. Is it someone we'd want to work with? How do they sound? Are they respectful? Things like that.
Yeah.
And then it was 2 or 3. It was a 2-stage or 3-stage. It might have been 3-stage. But I remember one of it, you go in person. And it's actually all coming back to me. Oh my god! Do you know why it was actually really good? Because we worked on a startup in uni. Yeah. You know, we worked on Hives, right? Yeah. And I think so. This is the importance of side projects. I think working on that single-handedly landed me that job. Because when I went in there, they asked me about how would you kind of like build an application front and back end. And when we were doing Hives, I learned about MVC, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what really impressed them, because I was describing the kind of structure and they were like, do you, because they were just trying to see if I understood what I was describing. I was like, yeah, this is the model view controller, this is MVC. And I could tell they were really impressed from that.
Yeah.
And then also some basic Java questions that was standard. But I think that part, that's what landed me a job. They were really impressed with that part.
Your side project saves the day again.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
They ask you any leak code style questions?
I don't think so. But I know they started to introduce it after we got hired, because I think me and some of the people who got hired for that company, I think that was the first time they were hiring graduates, because they're like a consultancy, and they just wanted to try out, hiring graduates. And then after that, they were happy with it, so they kept hiring graduates, and they more formalized the interview process, added leak code, just things like that. Yeah.
And how much money did you make from that job? We don't have to say the name of the job or where the company is, just how much money did you make from it?
To be fair, yeah, actually, yeah, I won't say the company, but so my LinkedIn.
You can also give us a range, like
okay, my range. Okay, I won't
20 to 30, 30 to 40.
I won't give specifics, just in case, because I hear it's a bit frowned upon. 25 to 30. I'll give that range.
That's your Christmas.
You know what people are gonna do? They're gonna go bang in the middle, and that's right.
30, that's literally like it's very okay. That makes sense.
Okay. The range is 20 to 30. No, at least 25 to 30.
You started applying for this right towards the end of university, and you landed the job right after university ended.
Yeah, or I landed the job before I graduated, and my first day was September, like the 17th, I think.
Okay. And
in 20.
Oh, go on. 20.
No, I was gonna say the year, but I actually forgot. It was 5 years ago. If you want to do the math, 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take me through like a typical day in your life at this company. What time did you wake up? Did you go into work? What did you work on? Did you have meetings? Was it
so this is interesting.
Yeah.
So when I started to understand what they meant by imposter syndrome, because on my first few days there, I think you get 2 weeks where they kind of, because they know they're hiring graduates, right? So they give you like this project and the guide to kind of help you get up to date, learn about some tools and technologies. But I was having the maddest imposter syndrome. I was like, oh my God, they're giving me money and I'm a fraud. Like legit, my heart was, I swear to God, my heart was beat. Oh, there's no way. So you know what I did? I was working like everyone was taking lunch breaks. Nah, I can't take no lunch breaks. I'm a fraud, right? Was it people finishing at 6? Nah, I gotta keep working. I'm a fraud. Like that was what's going on in my mind.
Wow.
I remember when skipping a lunch break and one of the other graduates going, oh yeah, because a lot of them were there, I think a few months before I started, and it was like, why do you skip a lunch break? You work hard. And I was like, fam, you don't know I'm a fraud, bro. I thought but oh my God, yeah. So then after that 2 weeks was done on the project, it was actually all right. Honestly, it was all right. And then I got put on my first proper job.
Did your imposter syndrome just gradually go away as you were working really hard? Or is it something you had to like deal with the whole time while you were in the company?
So I can get to when it actually started to go.
Okay.
So the first so when I finished that kind of like 2 weeks intro, I got put on my first proper job. So this was a consultancy. So you work in different places and they did a lot of government stuff, right? So my first thing was a government role. Went there and I worked on some end-to-end tests. Standard stuff, they know I'm a graduate. They're going to put me on some basic stuff, improve the end-to-end tests. Yeah, I improved them. I also worked with one of my other graduate colleagues. And so, go there, work with some end-to-end tests. And then this is where I got introduced to the whole ticket process. Or there's a ticket, pick up the ticket, code, make a PR, get it reviewed. Because before uni, so this is how much I shit I was to uni. Leaving uni, I don't know anything about GitHub. I don't know how to use GitHub. I was thinking, that was
a code into folders and send it to each other. Put it.
Sometimes we'd use Google Docs just to write code and then copy and paste it to that. Yeah.
Good old days.
Crazy. Yeah. So that was one of my worries. But GitHub, honestly, you'll pick it up. It's one of those ones where You really don't have to worry about it. You will literally just pick it up when you need it. It's not
Yeah.
for
people
people
that
who don't know how to use it.
By the way, could you quickly explain that?
So when there's a piece of work that needs to be done, or there's multiple pieces of work that need to be done. Now, this all needs to be organized and visible for everyone so that everyone can see what needs to be done, who is doing it, the stage that it's at. Are they just working on it? Is it in review? Is it being tested? This piece of work is put into something called a ticket, right? Now, this ticket is something that everyone can see because it's basically like on a website on some ticket manager, right? This could be, I've heard of something like Jira or even Linear, right? So everyone has visibility to these tickets, and the ticket is like a note that says, hey, this is the piece of work that needs to be done. It could also say who's doing it right now. If someone has picked it up and you pick it up by your signing yourself to the ticket, right? And then it'll give you where it is in the pipeline. Maybe it's being reviewed, tested, and then maybe it's finished, right? So that's what this ticket is. It's a piece of work and information about a piece of work that's visible to everyone. This is how work is organized in tech. And I don't know, maybe in other industries, but I'm speaking for tech.
Yeah, great explanation.
So, thank you. So so I pick up tickets, PR, merge it, and that's my day to day. And I guess the type of work I do depends. Like, I know in this government project, since I was such a graduate, they only really trusted me to add and modify end-to-end tests. So that's what I did for a fair amount of time. And then the second role, so the one after this, is actually where my confidence started to boost up.
So is this another company or within the same company?
Same company, but consultancy, so different government project. So someone from my company messaged me saying, yo, there's a place close to actually where you live at home. Because I've been talking about, if you have any work closer to where I actually live, that'd be perfect. And they said, oh, there's one literally where you live. But then I had to interview it because this specific role, they didn't really want to give it to a graduate, and they were kind of nervous about doing it because it was actually quite a difficult project. And honestly, till this day, probably the most complicated project I worked on. Just like the design of it was crazy, but I'll get into that. So they wanted me to interview. I went and interviewed. They asked me some questions. Nothing deep. They asked me about, I guess it was going to be Java. So they asked me about object-oriented principles, like inheritance, polymorphism, things like that. And some Java questions, but nothing deep. But they loved me, which I was so happy about. So then I started to work there. And then this is where, let me see. Oh, and then when I started working, I was introduced to something called domain-driven design, which is this whole thing. It's like, I want to say it's the equivalent of me trying to learn C++ when I was 11. Like, this was such a crazy architecture, and we were dealing with criminal cases, right? So 99% of things you're going to do is CRUD. Create, read, update, delete from a database. But because this is dealing with actual charges and criminal stuff, everything needed to be audited, right? If you want to delete something or update something, it doesn't update it. It creates an event called an update event detailing what's being updated, and then it stores that event. And to build the database, you basically run through these events and recreate it, right? And then you also had a separation of read and write, like a database specifically for read and for write. It was such this complicated architecture. But then this is where I was starting to get to books, right? So when I started, I read books like Clean Code. I really recommend.
Clean Code.
I asked Clean Code. Very good book. Probably the best book I've read.
Add that to the show notes.
Tech. Yeah, Clean Code. So I asked my line manager, yo, this architecture is so crazy. What do I like? Do you have any books? So he gave me this fat book, and I bought it, and I was reading it while I was working, right? Which was kind of funny because the contractors came up to me and it's like, yo, put that away. You're supposed to be the expert, like quote unquote, the expert on this. Yo, you can't be caught reading this. You can't be caught reading this. So I read it on a low, and I also coded. And I guess this is when my imposter syndrome went, right, or started to go, because I guess for one, I was still putting the same. I was just working because this was a hard. Like I wanted to. I don't want to. Maybe like 10, 11 hours for like weeks. Just work, because honestly, I don't want to lose this role because it was right by my house. And so I had this book, but when you put in the hours, you improve and you see the improvement, especially at that rate. So I was improving. I was doing great work. I was getting a lot of compliments from all these contractors who work around me who were like proper senior contractors. I had the book. I was going through the book, learning a bunch of stuff. And then maybe a couple months later, I reflected and I was like, wow, I'm actually built different. Like, honestly, that's when I thought. I was like, I'm built different. So about a year in, that's when I thought, you know what? I'm worth. So like I said, my salary was on the 25, 30, which I was getting raises, but I thought, you know what? I can get more. I feel like I can get more. So I restarted the interview process, which was
company. And is this when you also got rid of your imposter syndrome too, after working those 11 hours a day and realizing that you are built different?
Honestly, yeah, because eventually, I was like, oh, I'm putting all these hours and this is such a complicated piece of work, but I'm holding my own. I literally just graduated from uni and I'm holding my own on this complicated piece of work. I'm definitely worth X amount of money, right? And also I wanted to, not only that, I wanted a company that had a bit of brand, a bit of prestige, because I just knew that would look good on my CV. So I started the whole interview process. And when I actually did land my job, one of the contractors, I'll never forget, because I was really flattered, he was really upset. He was the one leading it, the tech lead. I remember he took me into a room because I told him I was leaving, or I told him I found a job. He was like, Adib, because with contractors, they kind of have their own company, and they kind of work as an agent of their own company. So Adib, how much do you want to stay? Like he fully pulled me to the side and he said, how much do you want to stay? I'll hire you in my company and I'll pay you to stay on this project because you don't want me to leave it. I mean, I left, but I was like, wow, that's like, wow, is that me?
That was been great. Why didn't you just try to say a really high number and just see if you could click, like say 200K?
No, I'm a pussy, bro. At the time, I wasn't trying to negotiate. I'm too shit, especially in person. By email, sure, but in person, ain't no way.
Oh, okay. So after this, after you got really better, you realized, I actually deserve something more. And that was after a year of working in this company.
Yeah, about a year. Yeah, and then a year and 3 months was when I officially left.
Would you attribute most of your improvements to reading the Clean Code book, working really hard, listening to mentors? What would you, if you had to choose one thing that helped you accelerate really, really quickly in that 1 year, what would you choose?
Interesting. So I'll start by listing some things that definitely helped. One is reading a bunch of books. Number 2 is side projects. So even while I was working, at the time I was just doing a lot of side projects because this is when I kind of wanted to learn JavaScript and also to implement the things I learned from Clean Code. So I started doing a lot of side projects, seeing, working on things like refactoring, building projects, getting used to things like CRUD. That's 2, the side projects. 3 was the hours. Honestly, so I'm gonna attribute it to the hours because I have a couple friends who start new roles, who start working, and one advice I give them, which I do when I start a new role in the beginning, for the first months maybe you got to put in a shift, right? And I don't specify side, but I'm just like, you just got to put in a shift because if you're really putting a shift, I feel like you probably figure out what to put your energy in. Maybe you put in side projects, maybe something specific to the company. Yeah. But for the first month, because I think that impression, I do believe in first impressions, and I think that first impression is so important.
That it sticks.
But there is a downside.
What's the downside?
When you set the expectation here,
I know, yeah.
They start expecting this level non-stop.
I remember that's the downside. When you joined the Fuse in the early days, I couldn't believe how many hours you were working. I was like, what's going on? So how do you deal with the downside of them expecting that from you the whole time?
So funny thing is, the contractors at my first job also told me this. If you do this, people expect this. But one thing is, I guess I'm gonna say because I reduce it. Even though they expect it, I reduce it. But I reduce it to a point where I'm still doing more than everyone else. Because in general, you notice people don't put that much work.
Yeah.
And even if I'm here, even if I go down to here, as long as I kind of work on efficiency, because I can reduce the work hours as I start to understand the work more. I understand the code base. So I don't have to put in that much hours to get the same output. But that's why I think that first month is so important, in that just learn as much as you can so that you can just be more efficient as you go down the line.
That makes sense. I definitely agree with that, because the first few days, actually the first few weeks is the hardest because you don't understand you don't understand the code base. And the faster you can pick it up, it's almost like the easier you can then chill afterwards, because now you understand it really well. You don't have to think that hard about
Yeah.
the code base. You understand, everything just makes sense and clicks in that moment.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. So after 1 year, you got a new job. Take me through like every job you got afterwards. Just say like the
Okay.
company, the range of the salary that you worked for, that you
Right.
earned while you were at that company.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Okay.
So
Yeah, then
yeah, take me through the
and how
take
long
me
I
through every
worked there for.
company you worked. Yeah, take me through every company you worked
Was
after that. What was the name, if you want to share? What was the salary range?
Mhm.
And how long did you work there for? And what was your biggest takeaway? And then for each of them.
So the second place I worked is Babylon, and this was in healthcare, and it had a name which is what I was going for, because it was like a unicorn at the time. It was basically a start worth over $1 billion. And this was interesting because now I started to learn a bit more about scale, because that project I worked in my previous job in crime, it wasn't launched yet. It was actually being built, but it hadn't actually been launched. So this was one where I was working on something that was being used by people.
Yeah.
So I learned certain things. For example, when the database starts to get slow, how can you make it faster? So certain things like, not database specific, but certain things like caching, just to speed up reads. System design, I was more involved in system design because I worked in like a small team. Whereas in my previous project, we had separate architects who designed it and we just implemented it. But here we were a small team, we were given a task, we have to design it ourselves and then implement it. So I got to kind of like watch and observe as the seniors kind of did that. And also I could give my voice, and my skills and I guess system design improves from that, really. I worked there for about a year and 3 months as well. And the reason is my experience in that place, I felt like there wasn't much of a structure, or there wasn't really any career ladder like that. I worked there for over a year and there was no mention of anything. Oh, Adib, you're doing well, you're doing bad, you're doing X, you're doing Y. There was just literally nothing. There was no trajectory at all in that company, in my experience.
Yeah.
So this is when I decided how much was I earning. I'd say the 50 to 60K range.
Oh,
I'll put it there.
Yeah.
I was super happy about that.
It doubled from the first job to the second job, almost.
Yeah, almost. Although to be fair, in the first job, they were really good at giving raises, because by the time I left, I was on I think maybe like 40K or something. By the time I left, so they were really good. They were really good.
Yeah.
So then I left Babylon, and this is when I was feeling a bit more confident with interview. This is when I started taking things like lead code and system design seriously. So I applied to a couple of jobs, and one that actually reached back finally was Spotify, which is one I've been wanting to work in since uni, because Spotify is my favorite app. Yeah, so I did want to work in the company that was my favorite app. And this was, I'd say, the most... Oh, actually in Babylon, so the interview was lead code. I think it was actually pretty much just lead code. There wasn't actually any system design, if I recall. It was mostly just phone call, lead code online, and then lead code in person type things. But with the Spotify one, it was like that, but they actually had a more fleshed out and I think a more conventional interview for big companies. So you had the phone call, then you had the online lead code style interview, and then you had just a day of interviews. So you had the behavioral one, you had the system design one, you had the kind of lead code, but it was more so they give you kind of lead code, but there was a lot more code involved. Like you actually have to look at a whole piece of code and kind of modify it, update it. Maybe they're like, oh, write us this to get this information from this database. Kind of like that. It was more practical, right?
Yeah.
And I got an offer. I want to say about Spotify, fantastic role. I think I started, what was my starting salary there? The 60 to 70K range. I'd say around 60, 70K range, and then it kind of went up.
Not much improvement in salary from Babylon, but better name.
Yeah, much better name, and it was actually much better because I gave ranges. But imagine the lowest of one range and the upper of the other range. So it was actually a pretty good jump. So it was a pretty good jump. And then it also went. Sorry?
You got free food?
Yes. Oh, I'll get to that. So, And also with Spotify, there was a clear career trajectory, like constant performance reviews. I had a fantastic team. Honestly, the food, great food, warm food, and they give you a card, so it was free. And if you don't want that, they give you a card with like maybe £200 or something in it, so you can literally just go and buy whatever you wanted from elsewhere. Performance review. So after 6 months, I got a salary increase because I was doing really well, and I appreciate that because I was, I was putting a shift. I was putting a shift when I started, and since the team was so good, since my tech lead, I think till this day, my tech lead, best engineer I've worked with. I learned a lot about things like, he was levels, bro. He was low. He was low. You're not far though. You're not far though, but he was levels. He was levels. He was levels. I learned a lot about system design. I had a great team, and honestly, when I worked there, I was so sure I was going to spend years there. Like I had no plans of leaving until you came along. So I stayed there for also a year and 3 months. Crazily enough, how the world works. Because I was reached out by Tunde because he's been doing a startup since June, and he was like, "Yeah, do you want to just apply for my startup? We're gonna." And Tunde can sell. You can sell an idea. You can sell. He's like, y'all don't even know you can sell an idea. So I was like, at the time, honestly, when I did the interview, it was more so just want to see how my interview skills were doing. It was about a year. I didn't plan to leave, but it was like, here, mind. Yeah, let me just stay sharp. So I did the interview process, went through that, and then got an offer. And this was actually a hard decision because I don't want to leave Spotify, but I also want to be rich. And I'm not going to get rich in Spotify. So ultimately, I ended up leaving to go to Fuse.
But what would you consider rich?
What would I consider? I'd say $1 million in the bank account would be very good.
You never get that Spotify, but in a startup, there's a small chance that might happen.
A very small chance, yeah.
And what's the salary range at Fuse?
I guess 70 to 90K.
That's a lot of money.
It's a big range. Yeah, it was. I guess it started out around the 70 to 80K range, and then it eventually just kept going up to 80 to 90K. Because my boys, my boys chew, right?
Okay, quick last question in the job part, and then we're going to move into the next section. Is what is your most memorable pull request you've ever made in all your companies?
In all my companies?
Yeah.
You know what's funny? So I'm a back-end engineer, but the one I remember the most is a front-end pull request I made in Spotify.
Yeah.
Because I think the reason it made it even more memorable to me was when I got that thing merged, that team, what were they called? I don't know, the Spotify design team, right? I got a mug from, literally in my mail, a mug that was branded with that team name. And I think I did it because I did a PR for their team. So I thought that was really cute. I think they gave me a mug for making a PR. That's how nice Spotify's culture is. I'm telling you, Spotify is different. It's actually lovely.
Give a reward to your engineers when they give really good pull requests because they remember it when you have to come. Okay, I want you to teach the audience something new about software engineering. Something, you can make it something technical, just something new that they may have never heard before, something that you're really interested in.
Oh, I forgot you said you were going to ask me this. Shit.
Anything.
Okay, so I did say my favorite book that I ever read was Clean Code. And I guess this one's probably for the more junior developers as opposed to the seniors, because when I see a senior pull request, it looks lovely. But for the more juniors, take refactoring seriously. Simple things like indenting your code correctly. Now, really, you should have a linter, which if you don't, add a linter to your code base, right? Make sure it auto formats.
What's a linter for people that don't understand what a linter is?
So, for example, a linter is something that indents your code automatically and it formats your code automatically. Depending on the scope of a linter, it could do many things. Maybe it fills in a semicolon where a semicolon should be. But TLDR is it makes your code look nice automatically without you doing anything except maybe pressing a shortcut, right? Or you can have it by default when you commit. when you commit your code, it will apply the linter, right? So you don't even have to put in any effort for clean code. You'll just get it for free. That's one way you can get it. But for the more technical stuff, for example, I wonder if I can share my screen and give an example. Do you know any good IDs? I feel like this would be way better. Yeah, let me see. An ID. Yeah, that would work. Python. Say JavaScript. Even have JavaScript. Let me see.
Oh, actually, there's some. If you search Playground, JavaScript Playground.
Oh, I found one. This will be alright. Share screen. Just share. No, yeah, this will do. All right. Can you see my screen?
Let me just add it to the stage. Yeah.
Okay, so for example, if you had function do something.
Yep.
And I don't know, maybe for some reason, your function got to the point where you're doing, let's actually say const A equals 1, const B equals 2, const C equals 3. And for some reason, you need to do something like this. If B is greater than 2, if A equals 1, B equals 2, equals 3. I guess return, I don't know, true. Return false. Let's say, I don't know, let's say maybe your function got to this point.
Yeah.
A linter probably won't fix this for you. Not any linter I'm aware of, or maybe it might.
Yeah.
This is ugly. Like, this is ugly. You don't need all these nested if statements. So you could actually, because it's hard having to indent your eyes, and especially you can imagine a more complex example where these conditionals aren't so simple, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe it gets even more nested. It gets a bit confusing. So I guess we can take some steps to, I guess, make it cleaner. As an obvious example, let's say this 1 and B equals 2 and C equals 3, return true. So this is, I guess, the first step in making it nicer. But then I guess you could...
You've removed all the good conditions and put it into one condition. So you only have one if statement.
Yeah, and it's just that. And then, but then you can even, I guess, you can look at it again. And maybe you don't even need an if statement. Because honestly, the less if statements, the better. Not always, but in general, like, the less if statements, the better. So maybe, well, if this is true, return true. So then I guess you could just and goes 3, and then suddenly you can just get, and suddenly you just have that, just return this. That's all it does. So things like, this is a really simple example, but in general, please look at your code and refactor it to be nicer when you can. Like there's, if you don't think it can, if you think you're really him or her, you're probably not. You're actually probably not. I'm sure there's something nicer you can do with your code base. Yeah. But keep an eye on clean code. I guess that's a very low thing.
After you write code, don't assume the first piece of code you've written is perfect.
100% it won't be.
Use a linter first to make sure it's telling you like easy things to catch. Secondly, just stare at it. Can you remove conditions? Can you remove all the statements if possible, and just like have a return statement? And just like how many times do you look at your code over and over again before you decide, okay, I'm done refactoring?
I'm done refactoring till it reads like a book. I think, for example, till it reads like a book. So in the clean code book, one thing he says is it should read nicely. Like, you should be able to read it. You know what? Let me actually teach you something else. Let me actually. I have even something better that I want to share, which I actually got from the clean code book, which was probably one of the most important things I got. Look at this. So let's say, sorry,
I want to read.
You haven't read it?
No, I think I read the design pattern book. That's what the book I was obsessed with, but I haven't read clean code now.
you actually do this automatically because it just makes sense. But okay, let's say function do something called, actually this is too much, method A. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
And let's say I call method B. And let's say over here I have, let me, and then let's say call method C. And then maybe I have, I don't know, function method D.
Okay. So you have a lot of functions calling each other right now.
I have a lot of functions, but let's say the first function I call is method A, right? Or let's say, actually just assume method A gets called, right?
Yeah.
The thing about this, this is what my eyes are doing is super annoying because my eyes are here, then my eye has to shift up, method C, I have to scroll down, where's method C, and then, oh mad, method D is up here, right? My eyes jumping all over the place. I think I read something in clean code where it says really should kind of go up, down, it should just read nicely. So you can actually just move methods around like this. So really, well, method B gets called after method A. Let's put that there. Oh, method C.
I see.
Right, the calling functions are, it's right near each other and it's right underneath it. I look at method A, I see method B. Oh, method B is right there. Method C, okay, method C is right here. Method D is right here. So just by the structure of functions, I won't even lie to you. Someone told me, I remember when I was arguing about this with someone and asked them, how do you structure your method? They said alphabetically. I couldn't believe it. Alphabetically. like, don't do that. Don't do that. Make sure it's easy for your eyes to follow, right? So all these little things. So when I look at my code, I kind of also look at how easy is it to associate pieces of code that should be linked together. Like I have this function, I can see it calls something else. How hard is it for me to find the other function? So I just keep looking out until I'm in a place I'm happy with. Also, comments aren't bad, right? I feel like I've seen this thing that says, oh, you should never comment, your code should be self-commenting. And sometimes you need to comment, right? And it's okay. If you need to put comments to clarify some stuff or explain why a function is here, why a piece of code is here, then that's okay. As long as, I can make sense of it. Or whoever has to review code can make sense of it.
It must be really nice to be a member of your team and looking at your code, because it seems like you care a lot about how your code is perceived by other people and try to make it as easy as possible. So it must be very nice. Well, I already know it's very nice because I work with you. So from everything you're saying, I'm also thinking, it must be very nice to be looking at Adib's code and reviewing it a pull request.
It is. But also, thankfully, in the teams I've worked with in the past, I've also had the pleasure of reviewing their really nice code, because a lot of times I've just worked with really good people or like solid engineers, senior engineers.
Don't
thankfully,
too much, Adib.
Yeah.
My head is already big. No kid.
Give credit where credit is due. I give credit, yeah.
Okay, so the final section, this is a quick fire round. So I'm going to ask you a bunch, 4 questions. And I want you to answer as quickly as you can, as short as you can. The first thing that comes to your head, just answer it. Quick fire. Okay? Ready?
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep your skills up to date, and what resources do you use?
Wow, that's not a quick fire, fam. That's a long, elaborate answer. What are you talking about? What? How do you keep our skills up to date? Google and ChatGPT. Now, I say ChatGPT because it is actually really up to date. It's not like 3 years old anymore. It's very up to date. And side projects. If there is a new technology, I truly don't understand it until I've used it. So I can't just trust things I've read after experiment. Google, ChatGPT, side projects.
Perfect. Talking about side projects and new frameworks, working with you, I've realized that you're really good at picking up new frameworks very quickly. What do you attribute this skill to?
Fundamentals, right? Like one thing that fundamentals. So there are 5 main principles: variables, conditionals, recursion, function abstraction, like creating functions, and function application, applying functions. I know that whenever I learn a new language, I basically just need to learn syntax for how to apply these concepts, right? So I know the concepts. So when I learn a new language, it's more like, oh, what is the syntax to apply these concepts? Literally like learning like a different language. Like I speak English, But if I want to learn French, I know there is meaning I want to convey, and the French language is different to the English language, but I can convey the same meaning across two different languages.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like that in programming, right? They have their own syntax. Yeah, they have the same, conceptually, all the same. It's just different language, different syntax.
Yeah. What's the best piece of advice you've been given on your journey? Quick fire.
I guess the first thing that came to mind is when my line manager, my first job, said that books are the best resource. So really, like, because there is a big difference between a book and Google. Books are peer reviewed. They are thoroughly peer reviewed before they can be published. So, you know, if you have a book in your hands, it's good, right? It's reputable, right? Because it's gone through a lot of peer review. It's gone through a lot of edits, whereas anyone can write an article, right? So a good book. And also, I want to say the same line manager said one way he improved his skills is by just solving problems. Not just his, but maybe someone else had a problem that they were debugging. Go and help them, you know. Solve problems where you can, debug shit when you can, really. And honestly, those two pieces of advice, reading books and debugging problems, I found that they have helped me improve a lot as a programmer.
I definitely resonate with the problems, because programming, software engineering is just solving problems. And the better you are at solving problems, the better you are, essentially. So if you can just like flex that muscle of solving problems as much as you can, even when you're not working, and it can only help. What's something you believe about software engineering that most people would disagree with you on?
This is an all quick fire, fam. This is think about it. And
what's the first thing that came to your mind?
I don't know why, but the sentence is not that deep. Just came to me. I don't know why, but I need to think about why.
By the way, it's not that deep translates to don't take it too seriously. That's London slang.
Oh yeah.
Don't take it too seriously.
It's not. I guess so. Here's the thing. Wait, what was the question you asked?
What's something you believe about software engineering that most people would disagree with you on?
Oh, I actually got something.
What?
No, but I'm not. In certain times, you don't have to. You don't have to get the best solution. Sometimes you just got to stitch something together, right? So maybe you want to fix. Maybe you want to fix like a little bug in a code base, but you know it's not the best solution. Maybe it's not like really the small bug is part of a wider bug. And the wider bug should be tackled. And I just know I've been in a couple of situations where I might just want to fix just that little bug there. And then I get a comment in the PR, oh, really, we should be solving this as part of the wider bug. But I guess in my heart, I know that wider bug will never be, no one's really gonna tackle that wider bug, or maybe it's gonna take too long. Just let me put my shit solution in place. I don't know if that. Honestly, the only time I've really done this is for front end, where some little thing is slow. Like this little thing is slow, so I kind of maybe have a hack to make it a bit faster, because I feel like, this feature that we're building, it's. I just want this piece of thing to be faster. Like I know it's part of a wider problem, but let me just put this hack in place, because we're trying to launch this feature, and like people will notice this first, even though it's definitely not the greatest solution.
So hacky solutions sometimes.
I think hacky solutions they do the job. They're not terrible. They do. I want to say it's a opinion no one else believes. I feel like it's a pretty standard opinion.
I think it's hard to say. I think some people will say, no hacky solution. I want the truth. I want the main solution. Yeah, the real solution. But yeah, I agree with that.
I guess in a corporate job, you probably have time, or a bigger job, you have time. But in a startup, you
need to hack away.
You need to hack away.
Yeah. That's basically it. I really appreciate you doing this with us and teaching my audience something. I'm sure we're going to do another interview at some point and see how you've progressed. You're probably going to be making $1 million.
Inshallah.
You don't want to learn how you made it. So yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time.